Okay, we are hopefully going live. I'm testing this out. The reason I am live streaming in from the fur shed here this evening is because I wanted to test out. Well, I'm kind of in between a couple of projects right now, but I wanted to test out this new internet connection I have. I actually got Starlink internet. So funny, the last time I did a live stream, I mentioned to one of the commenters that it's really hard. It was really hard for me to do these. Everybody was like, do more live streams. You should do another live stream. Can't wait to see you. Like, geez, I I tried the two live streams I did, both sucked all the data off my phone that I had for the entire month. And so I had to stop and I couldn't use my data for other stuff. And one of the commenters said, "Hey, you should check out Elon Musk's Starlink." And I said, "Yeah, I've actually signed up for Starlink and I was on the waiting list." So I believe it or not, after 6 months or so on the waiting list, I all of a sudden got an email from SpaceX, said your Starlink is ready to ship, and I paid a lot of money, $500, plus it was about 500, I think, and then it's $100 a month after that. And after I paid that, shipped, and it was like a week, and it was at my door, and it was literally maybe 30 minutes to hook up and set up and mount. I mounted it up on the roof. I did it all myself. It was really easy. Just one wire and a modem. It was slick. It was simple. And all of a sudden, I have like New York City speed internet in my house in rural Maine in the middle of nowhere. It's unbelievable. It's like, I don't know, 20 times the speed of what I had before. So yeah, awesome. I'm psyched about it, and apparently it's going good because I'm on right now. My wife and kids are streaming Roku TV right now. They're going. This computer's downloading stuff in the background. I got other stuff going on that same internet connection, and it's going awesome. So that's great. What that means is if I have time now, I can't use the internet connection as an excuse like I did in the past. Like, I can't do more YouTube stuff. So now I uploaded the other day, I uploaded a 1 hour long video from a beaver trapping demonstration I did 2 years ago. And I had never uploaded it because I never had a good enough internet connection to upload such a large file. And the other day, boom, I think it was like 5 minutes, and it was up and posted it. So I'm going to be posting a lot more YouTube videos and hopefully recording a lot more because of that. So anyway, looking at the chat here, awesome. I didn't expect anybody to be on because I don't really do these regularly, and it looks like there's some people around. So Greg, Riley, hear me loud and clear. Dusty, working well. Delta, the canine, hello. Hey, how's it going? Hey, Bull Daniels, what's up? Good to see you again. Bull was on some of those beaver trapping videos. Delta, I have a pair of gray foxes and only able to use dog proofs. Is there anything specific I should do to attempt to trap them? Ugh, yikes. Hard to catch. I've heard of gray fox being caught in dog proofs, but not very regularly. Why can you only use dog proofs? You can't use foothold trap where you're at? Bull, getting a ton of coyotes on my trail cameras. Yeah, and Bull, I've actually been doing a lot of haying. I'm finally done making hay on the farm, but I've several different fields this summer. I've had coyotes just following the tractor and running around and looking for mice and grasshoppers and whatever. We got a lot of coyotes here this summer. Unfortunately, the areas that are close to home, there was another trapper. He's a good guy. I work with him a lot on different things, and he actually buys fur and he sells supplies, and I buy stuff from him. But he has exclusive permission to trap a lot of the land around me. I haven't been able to, I've got these coyotes here, and I'm going to make some sets on my farm, but they don't regularly travel there. They go usually around the outside edge of my fences, and I'm going to see about trying to draw them in a few places. But boy, if I had access to trap the several hundred acres around me, it'd be good. So we have cats. Oh, you have cats, Delta. Yeah. Yeah, that's tough. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you can do there. I mean, if you got cats running loose, like a long ways from, if you can trap out away from houses where you shouldn't have domestic house cats, you'd probably be all right. You know, you can get those foxes out there. They're probably covering a pretty large area. And so you can go to a place where you're not likely to catch those cats. If you have like feral cats running around, you're gonna have a hard time. I remember when I was in Utah trapping, there were feral cats all over the place outside of the city that I live in, and people wanted them dead. So that's the thing. Like, if you got feral cats running around long distance from houses, that those cats are killing so many wild birds, songbirds, and everything, and they're kind of a nuisance, to be honest. But if you got home cats, like, they should stay, relatively close to the house, and hopefully you should be able to use foothold traps further out. Dusty, that's funny. Delta, we don't have any fox-sized traps for them. We'll get you some 1.5s. How about 1.5 coil springs? I was at a convention this past weekend, but I'll talk about that in a little bit probably. But I picked up 8 1.5 Victor coil springs for $2 a piece, and they're in really good shape. So my plan is, I get a friend that's going to come and wants to trap for marten and fisher up here in northern Maine this 2022, this next season, not this season coming. And we're going to take some time off of work and run some footholds, because usually my marten and fisher line is all body grip traps. It's 120s, 160s, some 220s. And we run off of a 5-day check in unorganized towns and a 3-day check in organized towns. And so I can do that and still have a job, right? But I can't run a long line on a 24-hour check. And with foothold traps, we have to check every 24 hours. So I'm going to probably take a week vacation for when my friend comes, and we're going to run footholds. And what I want for those marten and fisher is I want to be able to, if I want to release one, I want to be able to do that and not have any foot damage. And I like having, humane catch and everything, and just makes me feel a little better if I can hold an animal without any abrasions or cuts to the paw and stuff. And so I've got those 1.5 Victor coils. The springs aren't super, super strong on them. And I have most of them, I have laminated jaws, and I'm going to laminate the rest of them. And so it'll be a nice soft catch, but it still should be plenty of power to hold a marten and a fisher. And those 1.5s will hold a gray fox too. All right, let's look. Bull Daniels in Northwest Pennsylvania. Dusty chained up a trap to a fence. Coyotes tore it up pretty bad. This time of year, one fun thing to do is to make a bunch of mock sets and put some lure down the hole and see what happens. That can be really effective. I actually had a guy that bought some of my lure, and he asked, has it been tested? And I didn't quite understand him. I said, well, it hasn't been statistically, tested on hundreds or thousands of animals, but I said, people from all over the country have used it. Before I ever sold it, I sent a lure to a bunch of people and got a bunch of feedback, and it worked very well. And so he bought some just to try it out, and he made like the first dirt hole set he made. He sent me a picture of the whole area, dug and tore up, and lots of digging and traction. So that's a good way to test your lure, to make sure that it's going to have the right, coyotes are going to respond properly. They're going to, you want that digging response. You want them to be actively working that dirt hole, so they're setting their paw down in the trap pattern area multiple times. So hopefully they'll get caught. And this is the time of year, if you do have the time to do that, it's a good idea to do. Delta canine have around 5 acres in rural Louisiana, some lease land to hunt, 3 coons and rotter last year, new trapping, and an FFA in agriculture classification. Awesome. Hey, good deal, man. You're presenting to other people about trapping in some of your classes. I think I read that right. That's really cool. Okay, so I wanted to talk. Actually, one of the reasons I'm doing this, I'm in the fur shed, and I'm making beaver. I'm processing beaver castors. So I wanted to. I don't know if you can see this. So there is the grinder, and in there I have about $300 worth of beaver castor. Those are from, if you watched my spring beaver DV or beaver videos on YouTube that I put up here recently, those are all castors from beavers that I caught this spring. And the tough thing was I can actually sell those for about $100 a pound dried. So it's hard to make a lure with, and sell it for, say, $6 an ounce or whatever. I sell 4-ounce bottles for usually $25 shipped, which is about $20 for 4 ounces. I'd be losing money, right? I could just sell it to, send it to fur harvesters, and even after the 11% commission, I'm still making out good on that castor. I don't have to do anything with it. But I want to keep making this lure because I make it for myself. I use a lot of it. It works really well. And I've sold it I only started selling it recently, and people are really liking it. And I want to kind of have that steadily, have a steady sort of small part of the Trapping Today store where I can sell a lure for different species for guys that, as I develop a lure that I'm really confident in. I don't have a coyote lure because I don't have one that I've caught a couple hundred coyotes on that I specifically know that, okay, this is my lure I use. I like to use a lot of other guys' coyotes lures. But this beaver lure, stuff like that. I got a muskrat lure, beaver lure, and then a long distance call lure, which is the most popular one. Really strong, really skunky. I made that last night. But God, it was terrible. Your eyes water. The skunk is just, it's brutal. You got to be careful, and you got to, all the clothing that you wear, you can't bring anything into the fur shed that's going to go back into the house, or I would have to get a divorce. and then, or to work. One time I made long distance call lure one evening after work. The next morning I changed all my clothes. I thought everything was good. Well, I forgot that I wore my belt, my leather belt, while I was making the lure. And when I got into work, people started looking at me, and they're like, "You stink." And I was smelling myself, smelling all my clothes. Everything was fine. Finally, I get to the belt. It's like, oh, yikes. And so that really, anything, that odor is just so permeating and strong. But anyway, yeah. So that lure, I got those different lures. So I actually had to increase the price of that Birch River beaver lure, and it's $28 for 4 ounce. That's with shipping included. But that castor is super, super valuable. But anyway, just the process is I'm going to grind that up in the grinder in a really like coarse plate. And then I'm going to run it through a finer plate in the grinder. And then you get it like the consistency of ground beef. You want it broken up so that the scent and the odor, the flavor, all that is going to kind of dissipate evenly throughout all the material in the lure. And then I'm going to put it in a blender, and I'm going to add glycerin, certain amount of glycerin, blend that together, add a little bit of sodium benzoate for preservative, get that to the consistency I like it. And then I'm going to take that and add that to, I have 2 other ingredients that I use to make my beaver lure and kind of mash that all up. But I got through grinding these castors, and I had a few that were just a little too frozen. So I stopped and let them thaw out. And I thought I'd load this up, and there's actually people here. So that's awesome. So Dusty, my regular guys that let me trap are asking me to teach them as a contingency for meat. First time to see people acting like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Dusty, what glands are you stockpiling for the lures? I tried the same with skunk and literally had a cop thinking it was the green. Well, when I started shipping long distance call lure, Dusty, interestingly, I had one package I sent to a guy in South Dakota, and that got held up within the postal service, and there was a big thing, and they called him up and they started asking questions and everything, and they wouldn't give him the package, and I called and he called and we tried to get it all figured out, and apparently they thought it was marijuana. It's the same thing. I don't know how they get. I don't really get that smell from it, but whatever. So yeah, skunk apparently has that effect on some enforcement people. But that was a teachable moment for me, because I started all the lure that has skunk in it now, I ship vacuum sealed. So I vacuum seal it right before I ship it, and make sure that we don't have any issues with odor leaking out through. And since then, it's been a couple of years shipping lure, and I haven't had any issues. So that's good. Glands that I'm stockpiling. So I use, like, for coyote trapping, I use coyote glands. I make a little bit of lure coyote glands, but I don't sell that. So I don't really stockpile much. I actually buy mink glands for one of the lures that I make, because I would never be able to, we don't have a lot of mink here. So I wouldn't be able to trap enough mink to, I get a spot down here in the swamp, and I've caught probably 200 muskrats there in the past 7 or 8 years, and I've caught one mink one time. I've caught a couple of mink up in the big woods here and there. I'll just go like on my marten line, and I'll have a stream crossing, and I'll put in a set. But I really don't catch many mink. We have a lot here, a lot of otter, and from other guys I've talked with, mink and otter, you don't see a lot of places where mink and otter are both abundant at the same time. If you have a lot of mink, you don't tend to have a lot of otter. If you have a lot of otter, you don't tend to have a lot of mink. And so there's some overlap there where they occupy a similar niche and they don't really get along. So the mink glands I buy, all the marten and fisher that I catch, I save the glands on all of them. And I do save my own coyote glands too, but that's separate. Coyote glands, there's all kinds of different. You can use the hawk glands, neck glands, the anal glands, the bladder, all that stuff. For the marten and fisher, and some extent weasel, all of my otter I save. Those are just anal glands. Those are the only real glands that are used in lure making for the mustelids. And those I only use for my own trapping, because I just don't catch. It takes a lot of marten to make, to put together an ounce or two of glands. We can only catch 25 here. Last year I caught 25, and I don't know how, it was a small amount of marten glands that I caught. Fisher are bigger, but still it doesn't add up that much. So marten, fisher, otter, I save, and I use all of that. Muskrats, I don't do many spring rats. Fall rats don't have much glands that you can use. In the spring, they get a lot bigger. So mainly, Dusty, I'm pretty much beaver castor. That's the biggest gland that I save, that I use in any real quantity. But I do save everything. I think you're smart to save all the glands, because it makes some really good. Holy Jesus! Somebody sent me some money. I've never had. Hey, my side, what's up? So that's like the super chat. I guess I haven't done that before, but I see other dudes live stream that people pay to support the channel and stuff during live stream. So that's the first time that's happened for me. That is awesome. I really appreciate that, man. Sweet. Okay, Dusty, Trev, how's the new internet? Bet that's a game changer. Absolutely. So Trev, I believe that people don't really understand how disadvantaged people in rural areas have been the last decade or two. If you want to live out here, it's a beautiful place to live. I love living here. I would never want to live in a city or a suburb or on a main road where there's copper and DSL lines and everything at high speed. The majority of people do. But the people who choose to live out here have a lot less opportunity to make money and to earn part of their living on the internet. And guys that are farming, and doing more rural type jobs, there just isn't a lot of money there. It really is part of the economy that's been kind of left behind. And I've always felt that if we could somehow get better internet service here in some of these rural areas, and put us on kind of a level playing field with the rest of the world, where there's no excuse if you grow up in a small town like I am. And, you know, I grew up in an unorganized township of a dozen people. You know, an hour and 15 minutes or more bus ride each way every day to get to high school. And so it's a, you know, it was a disadvantage, but if we can all have the same internet connection, we can connect with anybody in the world. There's all of a sudden no excuse. You can get educated. You can learn so many different things about whatever topic you want. You can produce things. You can share with people. You can join communities. It's a game changer. So with this Starlink, I've never been big on Tesla. I thought, you know, I have friends invest in the stock and everything, and I always thought it was kind of pretty hyped and, you know, a good product, but really overpriced and all that, and wasn't sure about the business. I thought, well, maybe it's just another overhyped thing, but they've launched satellites into space. I put this dish up on my roof, and the dish moves it knows where the satellites are, and it's moving, it's changing its angle constantly to catch different satellites as they're traveling across the sky. And it's just incredible. And so all of a sudden, for $100 a month, I'm competitive with anybody else in the world. No more excuses. Travis, hey guys, here in my side, thank you again for that. I guess we call it a super chat. $2 Canadian. Thank you. $2 is more than $0. Coyote Whacker, everyone from Western New York. Hello, everyone from Western New York. Awesome. Travis, hey guys, here from Michigan. Where are you guys all coming from, man? That's awesome. Trev, understand completely. Live outside of the city in the woods. Took 3 years to get high speed. Yeah. I mean, it's been frustrating for me for sure too. Dusty, with faster internet, it really opens opportunity. More people are trying to go back to the old ways and enjoy life and family and religion in short. Starlink, pretty cool. My side, got that donation pretty fast. I guess the latency is next to nothing. Yeah. All right. So the people that I have on here listening, I need to tell you something interesting, because I went to the Maine Trappers Association rendezvous this past weekend, and it was the first time. Trev, I'm just north of you in New Brunswick. Awesome, man. You're trapping all the lynx that are going across the border that we can't trap because they're threatened under the Endangered Species Act. Likes to help share the algorithm. Yes, absolutely. All the thumbs up, the likes, that'll get more people listening. So I went down to the rendezvous. It was the first time I'd been to the Maine Trappers meeting in quite a while. It was at a fairgrounds a few hours away. Oh, they're protected in New Brunswick. Okay, sorry. That's Trev. That's Quebec. I'm thinking about Quebec, where they do trap them. So, yeah, too bad, because they are very abundant. If you have any experience similar to us, we've got them everywhere here. So, and when I went to there, you know, I had there were a bunch of old friends that I got to reconnect with and stuff, and there were guys that I know from YouTube and from the podcast, and it's just amazing. It's kind of overwhelming because I'm pretty introverted, even though I do have all the videos and podcasts and stuff. When I go to a place like that with a bunch of people, it's kind of like I like talking to people. It's good. It's, you know, it's a good experience, but it's very exhausting. Like, it takes a lot out of me. But anyway, just like everywhere I look, you know, someone would come up and say, hey, Jeremiah, so-and-so I remember you from the podcast. I knew you from the podcast. And I watch your YouTube videos and all that. And so it was good to get caught up with people. And the coolest thing was actually seeing people who listen in and people who I interviewed meet each other and connect with each other, and is really cool. But anyway, one of the big things that I got from that was there are a lot of people that find me on YouTube and don't know that I do a podcast. I was just shocked. I had one guy that was like a huge fan of the YouTube videos and everything. And I mentioned the podcast and he's like, "What? You do a podcast?" And I was like, "Wow, I'm really dropping the ball here by not telling people more about the podcast. I'm not really a good advertiser, I guess." So every week I record a podcast. It's called the Trapping Today podcast. And you can download that any app that you download podcast at, listen to podcasts. And you can, if you don't have a podcast app, you don't listen on your phone, whatever, you can go to trappingtoday.com, and that's my website. And I post that up every week, and you can listen right there on the website. So I know there is a lot of overlap from guys that do listen to the podcast. But for those that don't, I do this every week, and I've done it for about 3.5 years. And there's about 1,500 people a week that listen in. The past year, I've been really having a hard time managing my time and trying to get more growth in the podcast. And I've struggled a little bit with that. So I'm actually thinking about slowing things down and not doing it every week, starting, in a few months. But just so that if you haven't been listening, please take advantage of that and tune in. We're just over 200. I think last week was the 200th episode, and it's all the way from just me sitting like I am here, just chatting about random trapping stuff, to interviewing different trappers. I interview guys from just everyday guys that none of us have ever heard of that have a lot of experience trapping, everyday guys that just started trapping and have questions. We talk to people from all over the country. I don't know, probably talk to like guys from like 15 or 20 different states. Also big name trappers, big name celebrities in the trapping kind of arena. So I've interviewed Stan Zaray from Yukon Men, the TV show that was on History Channel for quite a while. I've interviewed Tyler Selden. That was a Discovery Channel show. Those guys are both bush trappers in interior Alaska. I've interviewed several other Alaska people. Interviewed guys like Jim Comstock from Comstock Custom Cage, who makes the cage traps. He's out of New York. A beaver trapper, Kirk DeKalb, down in Georgia. Interviewed Ron Jones, who's a animal damage control trapper in New Jersey. Just a wide variety of different people. And actually earlier today, I interviewed John Daniel, who is the president of the National Trappers Association. And that's going to should be on this weekend's podcast. If you guys want to listen into that, we talk about like some of the challenges to trapping, the legal battles, issues with preserving trapping rights and all that stuff. So it's a cool thing if you guys get a chance to check it out. Dusty, got to go teach hardcore. All right. Have a good night, Dusty. Thank you, man, for listening in. Good deal. So that's the podcast. We actually make one. I've got, let's see. Oh, another thing that I wanted to mention for guys that you probably do a lot of shopping on Amazon, probably more than I think you should. And it's super convenient, and we do it on our phones or on our computer, and it's a couple clicks, and you order, and you get stuff in a few days, and everything's awesome, right? So one of the things that I've talked with people about in the past, and actually, if you're familiar with Clint Locklear, who has a podcast called Trapping Radio, and he has the Wolfer Nation Predator Control Group, makes a bunch of trapping lures. Probably one of the most popular, or the most popular lure maker in the trapping industry. He had a recent episode where they talked about how do we raise more money for the National Trappers Association, or for all these groups trying to protect and preserve trapping. And one of the ideas was, well, what if you had, when someone buys a trapping license, they can click to, round up the cost and add a few bucks to promote the association. What if you go to a sporting goods store and add a couple bucks onto my charge to, promote trapping? So there is kind of something that already accomplishes that through Amazon. So there's something called Amazon Smile. And Amazon Smile is a program where Amazon will donate a certain percentage of all your purchases to the charity of your choice. It has to be a nonprofit organization. So, of course, a lot of people are donating to Humane Society of the United States, thinking they're helping cats and dogs, and in reality, they're funding a lot of anti-trapping legislation and lobbying and commercials putting trappers in a bad light and all that stuff. Well, there's actually a 501c3 that is part of the Amazon Smile program called Fur Bearers Unlimited. And Fur Bearers Unlimited is an organization that is dedicated to research and conservation and education for fur bear species and indirectly promoting trapping through education and conservation. So I'm signed up. It's very easy. You just go to smile.amazon.com, and now it works for both the app on your phone and for the website, where you just link it up. You click on you want to participate in Smile, and they'll show you a bunch of nonprofit groups, and find Fur Bearers Unlimited. You click on them, you make them your charity, and I think it's 0.5% of all your purchases will go to FBU. And so it doesn't cost you a penny. The roundup thing, the whole idea that people were discussing, that would cost you extra money. This doesn't cost you a penny. Amazon pays the extra. It comes out of their cut. And so they're able to say, well, we've helped people donate millions of dollars into nonprofits. And we can say, wow, we're using this system to help donate to a nonprofit of our choice that's going to help us and promote our beliefs and hopefully preserve our traditions and our way of life. So it's a very small program in trapping because not a lot of trappers necessarily know about it. I've mentioned it a little bit in the past, but there's been, I think the last couple of years, year or two, since it started, there's like $350 have been donated through this program, through Amazon Smile. So Fur Bearers Unlimited has $350 to go and do something to help promote the cause. If a bunch of people like me will sign up for that, it doesn't cost us a penny. If we already shop on Amazon, we can hopefully increase that number and get, add to a little bit of war chest and maybe help Amazon support some of the things that we want to see done to maintain trapping. What else is going on? So we get the lure making stuff I talked about. One of the things that I've got one project this fall that I'm going to try to get into here. I've waxed dirt before for coyote trapping, and I know some of you guys have probably done that. Some people maybe have never heard of it. It's becoming more and more popular, especially if you live in a northern climate where we tend to have a lot of freezing conditions during trapping season and a lot of rain. Hey, Jeff McLean, great videos. Really enjoy that a lot. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that. I'm not a professional, so the videos, sometimes people complain, they're bouncy and shaky and stuff sometimes. That I try to do my best and just do something while I'm out there that will take you guys along without maybe taking too much extra time, but hopefully provide some level of entertainment and maybe a little education in some cases too. So upcoming videos, let's see how well that plays well into what I was thinking here with wax dirt. So I actually I've made wax dirt in the past using a tarp and lay dirt down on the tarp, dry dirt during a hot day, and you sprinkle wax over top of the dirt, and the sun bakes it and it melts. The wax heats up and it melts into the dirt, and then you mix it up, and eventually you get your wax dirt. Well, my problem is if it's hot and sunny here, we only have a few 80 to 90 degree days with full sun, and those are days that I'm in a hayfield either cutting, raking, tedding, or baling. So that's not really been an option for me this year, but I do want to make some wax dirt to maybe chase a few coyotes this fall. And so I bought a cement mixer from Harbor Freight. I've heard some other trappers that have used this, and it works pretty good. It's a couple $100. It's fairly reasonably priced. It's all steel, electric cement mixer, and you get that thing going. You put your dirt in it, you dump your wax in it. Well, you put your dirt in it, and then you have some source of heat underneath it. And what I have is like a turkey fryer. So a stand with a propane burner on it. I'm going to set that right underneath the cement mixer, get that thing spinning with my dirt, get the propane heat going. Once the dirt gets heated up to a certain temperature, I'm going to start mixing in the flake wax and get that melted in, mixed up good, put it in buckets, cover it up, and store it away for wax dirt. And if you haven't used wax dirt before, it can really mean the difference between success and failure on the trap line during certain conditions, especially if you get a big rain and then a cold front comes in and you can go by your trap beds. And if you don't have wax dirt, and you basically have to dig up your whole trap bed and put fresh, dry dirt every time that happens. So your trap's still working. I've had cases where the coyote's paw was right on and multiple times. Multiple different sets, right on top of the pan. Never fired the trap because their dirt had frozen. It got wet, soaked up the water, kind of froze into a crust, and just the trap was not able to fire up through it. With wax dirt, it just doesn't happen. The dirt, it just does not absorb the water, and I've had them working just perfectly, even with a trap bed just completely full of water from bad rain event. So it worked good. The problem is it's real expensive and it's labor intensive to make. And a guy told me, he's like, it costs you either way. You buy it expensive. If you make it, you still got to buy the wax and you got to take a lot of time to make it. So it's almost as expensive. But I'm going to do some of that, and I'll probably try to film that and do a little video action on that. I also have coyote whacker. I have to really keep an eye on the temp. Yeah, for sure. You can burn the wax if you get too hot. So I bought let's see if I have it here. I bought an infrared thermometer for this reason. So I got that digital infrared thermometer, and I never used one before. I've heard that they work for this. And so I'm going to use that to take temperatures inside the cement mixer. And yes, Judith and Dan, I have used peat moss, and it does work. I mean, it works. It seems to work pretty well. I don't really like the consistency of using like all peat moss in the trap bed. I like to mix it up a little bit. And I actually had a guy at that main trappers convention did a demo, really good coyote trapper, fox and coyote trapper, and what he likes to do is mix peat moss in his wax dirt, and he actually mixes it in during the dirt making process, and he does it primarily similar to what I was kind of thinking, is primarily for the color, because you want to get like the wax dirt, at least the stuff that I use, it tends to be, it's like a sandy, loamy type dirt. And it even waxed, it tends to be like a little bit lighter than the natural ground around the areas that I trap. And so I like to mix in a little bit of peat moss just to darken it up and get it more close to the surrounding area, so that you don't have your trap pattern as like one bright spot. And doesn't blend in well. And of course, you can blend in material from around, but that can take a lot of time, especially if you're on a hard packed gravel road and you're trying to go find something in the woods that you can use. So I thought that was a great idea. Just mix that peat moss in during the process. Some people do just use peat moss. Some people use anthill dirt. They'll just go to anthills. When I started trapping, the guy that taught me, all we did was go drive around dirt roads and find big ant hills. The ants have already sifted that for you. There's not a rock in it. They carried it up and piled it up, and it drains water well. So if it hasn't rained in a week, that is, dry. It's sifted. put it in burlap bags or 5-gallon pails, and you're good to go. But again, that dirt, it'll get rained on, it'll freeze. It doesn't operate like wax dirt. Hey, good to have live. Hey, thank you, Idaho Graybeard. Appreciate that. Judith, Dan, I saw where F&T has wax dirt and wax play sand. Oh, that's interesting, because my what I have here just happened to be lucky on my farm. I'm up above a river. I'm probably a couple hundred yards from the river, but I'm in kind of this valley. And as you transition away from the river valley, you move like from gravel to finer material to like sand, all the way to up to like loam that was deposited by the glaciers. But the part that I'm on, there's a band, and I have a few acres of it on my land. That is, you have a little bit of topsoil, and then you have 3 to 4 feet of straight sand on top of bedrock that has not a rock in it. And it's a fine sand. It works really, really well for trap bed. And it works well to make wax dirt. It's not as fine as a lot of that wax dirt, so I think that it doesn't use quite as much wax as you need with the smaller grain stuff. I suspect that, and to me, it actually helps. It beds better. The trap beds more solidly in it than I've had with some of that other consistency, the finer consistency of dirt that I've used. So anyway, it's pretty cool. It's like I'm on like an old part of like an old beach, as part where this river might have been at some point a big lake. Maybe the glaciers, there was like a dam or something, and a bunch of sand got deposited here. But it's pretty cool. I'm pretty lucky to have that to use. So that's what I tend to use. And I think, Judith, I think it works. I think obviously both work. They sell both of them. Frank, I use gopher mounds most times. Yeah, I guess that'd be pretty similar. Maybe you probably have to sift some rocks out of that. Maybe, I don't know, unless you're in a spot where you don't tend to have a lot of rocks. Where I'm at in Maine, most everything is, well, there's any of the well-drained soil tends to be very, very rocky. It's glacial till. It's loam and rock mixed with rocks mixed all through it. Coyote Whacker, great mix that works for me. 2 parts dry dirt, 1 part peat moss. All right. Judith and Dan, we're getting it under a barn. The local house cats ruin that. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, for sure. So that's a wax dirt. I think I got that covered. Let me check on these castors. Oh yeah, the rest of those are thawing out pretty good. So I'll be getting back to work here pretty soon and processing those. I don't want to screw them up. There's very expensive material you can't afford to mess up with hundreds of dollars of lure ingredients, because I can't really buy any more at this point. I guess the other thing that I wrote down, other than reminding you, hey, I have a podcast. I have kind of one of the things that I've been wanting to do. Idaho, a lot of badger diggings here. Good sources of clean dirt. Use dried cow pies early in the season. If I expect some rain, calcium chloride when it freezes. You reminded me, Idaho Graybeard. There's a guy, actually the guy that was talking about mixing the peat moss and the wax dirt. He is very conscious of the cost, and when he makes his sets, he'll use calcium chloride at the bottom of the trap bed and then cover the trap with wax dirt in a lot of cases. And the reason for that is so he doesn't have to use as much wax dirt. The calcium chloride helps it go a little bit further, and thus, he's not spending an arm and a leg. And really, like, this guy last year he said he caught 98 canines during the season, and Maine is, it can be fairly tough trapping conditions, and you're on a 24-hour check, so that's a really good catch. But you really, to make that many sets, to catch that many animals, you'd have to carry a lot of wax dirt if you're using like half a gallon or more at every set. I mean, it's crazy. So that is a good that's a good way to kind of make that stretch a little further. Yeah. So finally, the other thing I had, I'm kind of at a point with the podcast, with the YouTube channel, with everything else going on, where I'm a little uncertain on what I want to do moving forward in the future. So I haven't decided yet. Some of it's going to be, do I continue doing a weekly podcast? Do I push more into these YouTube videos and spend more time on that? Time is really limited. How do I fix that? How do I work on that? And then do I focus on other things that I haven't been able to spend much time on? So one of the things that I haven't done much of in the past 10 years has been writing. And I actually happen not trying to be, arrogant or cocky or anything. I'm not really good at videos. I'm not really that good of a speaker necessarily, but I am a really good writer. I've done quite a bit of writing in the past. I do have a few books published. So the most recent ones, Walter Arnold, Maine Trapper, that's actually a collection of a bunch of old legendary trapper from Maine here from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I compiled that and did sort of a modern day interpretation or modern day comparison of a lot of things that Walter was writing about back in those old days. I've done articles in trapping magazines and articles on trappingtoday.com, that sort of thing, but never really to the extent where I've been able to say, well, I gave it a good shot and I really dedicated a lot of time to this. So that's one of the things that this winter I might start working on, and maybe I'll be sharing some of that on the podcast or on the YouTube channel. Not really sure about that yet. I know, fewer people are reading these days. It's kind of a stupid market to try to get into, but I just, it's something that it's a lot of work. I don't like having to write, but when I finish up, I'm really glad I did. And I get inspired to write about certain things. Some of it, trapping, more informational trapping stuff. Some of it more reflective trap line writing, and some of it actually some fiction, maybe some historical trapping fiction. I've worked on a couple stories in that category recently. So you might see a little more of that. I'll talk more about it maybe in the future. I don't know why I even shared that, but I just wanted to mention it. So Judith and Dan, we just bought a cookie cutter for cutting trap beds to limit the usage of prepared dirt. Yeah. So, and guys, I'm pretty much out of things to talk about here. And so if you have anything else and you've been waiting to ask a question, please go ahead and shoot it in there, and we'll try to get, if there are any, I'll try to answer them. But I am going to wrap it up here pretty soon, unless people have more questions or comments that you want to share. And Judith and Dan, that's an interesting one, because it was probably, what was it, like the 70s or 80s when that was first introduced, the cookie cutter to cut trap beds. And it was pretty popular for a while, and it kind of went away. But occasionally I hear about somebody talking about doing that. And it's interesting, because you use that cookie cutter and you push it or you pound it into the ground. The size of your trap bed, or the size, a little bigger than the size of your trap, you don't end up digging a big depression that you have to fill in later on. And we fill that in, that's all going to be filled in with, if you're using wax dirt, with your wax dirt. So that's really smart. That's a smart way of doing it. Judith and Dan, we got a good. All right, we got a few questions, a couple of comments here. And the other thing was, I watched a demo from Agger, who's a trapper in upstate New York, really good coyote trapper. He has what's called the pipe dream set, which to me is a lot less about the pipe, and it's more about how he beds his trap. And what Mark does, he uses a Pulaski, which is like a firefighter's axe, and he uses Jake traps, which are pretty big, and they're kind of square when they're set. And he'll cut into sod where he's going to put his trap bed. He'll make like 3 or 4 chops with this axe. He pull that section out and he cuts it so it's just smaller than his trap. And then he pounds his trap in so the trap is kind of suspended up above the hole where the trap bed is supposed to be, and the trap is wedged in between the sod that with all the roots and everything. And what that does is because that trap is up, he doesn't even use any dirt to cover. He actually just uses a wired aluminum screen pan cover and grass clippings over the top. And he's got that hollow spot. What it does is it allows his trap to be weatherproof, because when it rains or it snows, he doesn't have to worry about any of that dirt on top of the trap getting wet and freezing. So that's another option to do. I do have a whole garbage bag full of lawn clippings, hay cuttings that I've saved to try out, to do more of that pipe dream set. Problem is, a lot of my coyote trapping is in the big woods, and it's rocky, and there's not really any sod that where you could even make that set. So I'd have to do it in some of the farm ground, like on my farm, and try it out and see how it works. But that's another way of getting around it. Wally 2012, have you done any bear trapping? Excellent question. Now, Wally 2012, if you listen to the podcast, there was a few weeks ago, we did an episode on bear trapping. My friend Cole Porter is a fellow trapper who lives about an hour from me, and he's been on the podcast several times. He has bear trapped. I have done it. I did it once years ago. I have not done it since. And I know a lot of people who do it. I know people who have tried and have finally caught a bear after many, many attempts. I know people who are almost expert and they're almost guaranteed to get one every year. The rules are interesting. The specific way that you can catch a bear here is very detailed. You have to take an education course, and there's a lot to it. The biggest thing for me is the time that has to be dedicated to it, and is my busiest time of year. And so I have not had the time to, and Cole, when we did the episode, we talked about it. Cole's going to set up. We actually can, we're really lucky here in Maine. We can trap, we can shoot a bear, and we can trap a bear. We can harvest 2 bears. I believe 2 can be shot, or 1, you can shoot 1 and trap 1. You can only set 1 trap. It has to be a cable foot snare. It has to be a certain style, a very specific style. There are a couple that you can use. And you have to check every 24 hours. And there's several other rules associated with it. You have to have a bait site. I could do one on my land, so I get that covered. If you don't own land, you got to get landowner permission. A lot of landowners around here will want you to rent the site from them. You might have to pay $50 or $100, maybe some cases a little more to get the site. And then you have to bait it regularly, because the bear hunting industry here is hunting, hounds, and trapping. There's a lot of guides, a lot of bear hunters here. It's a really thriving business, and it's a good thing because we have a thriving population of black bears that need to be harvested. We have we have overabundance of bears, where we have a lot of problems in years where we don't get adequate bear harvest. So healthy population, a lot of opportunities. It's a very poor area, rural Maine, where the guide services seasonally are able to hire extra people. They're able to bring in some tourism, bring in some money from outside, and it helps the local economy in a huge way. So it's good, but you have to bait. And because it's so competitive, there's guys that have the best baits. They spend a lot of money. They're baiting every other day. They do all these different things. They know where the bears are. And so you almost have to keep up with them in order to make sure that the bear is not skipping your bait and going to theirs. And so it's a challenge. And I need to do it. I will do it at some point. Cole almost talked me into doing it this year. I just had the weather didn't cooperate. I had a baby. My wife had a baby 3 weeks ago. Beautiful baby boy. I was down and out for, had to wasn't able to do a lot of things associated with that time frame. And then the weather wasn't cooperating, and I had to delay some of the hay making and all that stuff from the farm work, and had to go back to my real job, which pays the bills. So I never did do it this year, but that's a great question. I want to do it. I want to talk more about it, maybe do some episodes, do some videos, but it won't be till at least next year, maybe the year after. Judith and Dan, what's your best mink bait? I'm not a good mink trapper because we don't have a lot of mink here. Fresh fish seems to work best for me, but honestly, I catch way more mink in blind sets than I do in baited sets. One good resource that I found, there's a mink trapping book by a guy named Don Powell. It's F&T has it. If you got the F&T catalog, I can't remember the exact name, but it's like got a blue, purplish, bluish cover on it, and it's 100% mink trapping. And he goes over all the different baits. He has awesome pictures of sets and things to do. And one of the interesting things I remember from that book was he talked about he uses in some sets rubber, soft plastic fishing lures and attaches them to triggers on body grip traps and sets them under the water. And he catches mink doing that too. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, mink eat a lot of muskrats. I do have, on occasion, I'll have muskrat in a trap that a mink comes by and chews it up, eats a bunch of it. So muskrat can be good. I've tried rotten meat, and I haven't done well with rotten meat for mink. I don't know if that's just the situation, or if that's a pattern or if that's something that other people have experienced. But fresh fish seems to be really good. Great chat, Loxbog. Thank you. Idaho Gravy, I wonder if you could give your opinion on using scat at coyote sets. I use it extensively and see it more useful than urine at general sets. I think scat with a little urine squirted on it is awesome. We actually had to have a clarification of some of the rules here, and I think another state might have had this too, where we're not allowed to use visual attractors fox and coyote season because they don't want us to be able to catch Canada lynx during that early season, especially. And so we had to clarify that scat was not considered a visual attractor. But in reality, in a coyote's world, scat is huge. If they can see a dropping there, I think that is huge as an attractor. As maybe some sort of a territorial response, it signals to them that another coyote has been here. So anytime that I am scouting ahead of the season, I gather up as much scat as I can find. I put it in a little bag. Make sure you don't leave it in a sealed bag. It can break down on you. It can get squashed up and stuff. And try to keep it dry. And I use it all the time. What I like to use, and take this with a grain of salt because I'm not a big time coyote trapper. Okay, so I can't speak with huge authority here, but the way that I like to use scat is especially on flat sets as a kind of a guide, sort of a subtle blocking, if you will. So I may have a rock where I have a little bit of lure. Let's say this computer mouse is a rock, and I've got maybe a little bit of lure just at the base of the rock, and I've got my trap usually the edge of the jaw in a lot of my flat sets will be like 6 inches from the base of the rock. Okay. And just on the outside of my trap, I will set a piece of coyote scat there. And so what that's going to do is the coyote might be walking 6 feet away down this road, and it sees that scat. It'll smell the lure. Maybe the wind's blowing a different direction. It kind of notices the rock, but then it sees the scat. Swerve over. Looks like another coyote's been here. Oh, I smell the lure. What's that? Boom, caught him. So that's kind of what I've used it. Oh, wow. Hopefully our connection is still going. YouTube says it may be a little unstable. but that seems to work for me. Wally 2012 had no clue about the podcast. I'll look it up. Awesome. Glad that some people hopefully will have learned about the podcast from here. And I just hate, I'm not good. Again, I know guys that will talk, have a business or a product, and they just constantly talk about it constantly. And they're really, really good promoters. And you kind of need to do that to be successful. And I have a hard time with that. So I need to start forcing myself to talk more about that, assuming that I assume, whatever, people know about that, but I'll try to mention it more. I hope you check it out and enjoy it. And all of the 200 episodes are available to listen right now for free. So you can go back and you'll hear, like, when early on, you'll hear how terrible I was. And hopefully you'll notice I got a little better over time. But anyway, Judith and Dan, they were scared of the PVC pipes here. We use cow leg bones and it worked better for us, like Mark used the pipes. Yes, absolutely. That's a good point. So I think some people have found the pipe is a visual attractor, and other people maybe have found the pipe doesn't really help much. You can use that set. To me, the pipe, the attraction is the hole. So when I haven't used the pipe dream set much at all, but if I use it more in the future, my plan was to actually have a shorter section of pipe and have it all the way down, like, to the edge of the dirt. And maybe not sticking out quite so much, because he usually has it, I think, sticking out an inch or two. And so, for a lot of coyotes, they'll see that, and it is a visual attractor. To me, the visual attractor is a hole, and the pipe, and Mark says this in his demo, the pipe is more than anything a lure holder. And so he notices that the pipe contains your lure. So when you get a bunch of rain and everything in your dirt hole can get filled with water. Your lure gets kind of wore down. It's kind of leaches out into the soil as the rainwater is leaching through the soil. What he notices is that inside that pipe, the lure tends to stay concentrated and it tends to last longer, and it focuses the coyote right on that spot. So I think if a good idea might be, if you're concerned about coyotes being afraid of the actual PVC pipe sticking out of there, I don't know where you are, but some places in my farm, they wouldn't be scared of it, I don't think, because I got PVC pipe all over the place. Most of my fence posts are PVC pipe, but if it's something novel, new to them, that you might think they're a little scared of, maybe, I'd try to pound that deeper in and just use the pipe again as a solid hole, and a lure holder. In my area, a lot of places, you'd be surprised how hard it is to get a hole in the ground. I've got the auger, the earth auger from John Chagnon, PCS Outdoors. He sent me one time. It's up there on the shelf somewhere. I guess I better not dig it out now. But that I can only do that on my farm ground. And I go out in the deep woods, and you hit so many rocks. And then I try the trowel. I've used the guy that has night owl lures, Jim Geffert or something like that. I bought his hole digger. He's got, it's like a special, like, narrow shovel that's kind of like a trowel to dig dirt holes, and I can't use that in the woods hardly. A lot of times I can only get my dirt hole 6 or 8 inches deep. So if you can get a deep hole, it's always better, in my opinion, because if you get a shallow hole, and it's easy for a coyote or fox to pull that bait. If you got bait in it, pull that out, investigate it, eat it, and there's nothing left for them, and they take off, and they may not have stepped in your trap. Coyote whacker, is there a size limit on trapping a bear? Yes and no. Technically, coyote whacker, there is no size limit on trapping a bear. However, there is a limit to the size that your cable can cinch down. So you have to put a stop on the cable. And if I remember right, the stop is the outside diameter of a soda can or a beer can. I think that might be 3.5 inches or something like that. And so there, that will prevent, if you get a deer going on your trail into the bear bait, deer fires the snare tightens around its foot. It's going to be able to pull it right out because the loop stops at 3.5 inches. I won't talk too detailed because Randy Cross, the bear expert, has given trapping demonstrations on this, and he knows exactly. He can tell you exactly the size of the bear that tends to be held with that legal stop. And I want to say all of the bear cubs will pull out of that, and then you get maybe like your yearling bears. You might be on the edge. I maybe 150 pounds. I don't know for sure, but that's basically that's what it is. Now, if you're brave, you can release a bear even if it is caught in that cable. You could release one if you didn't want to keep it, but people really don't want the safety hazard associated with that, and so they will tend to harvest that bear if they catch it. Oh, Judith and Dan are in Mississippi. Cool. Okay, so any other questions? We've been an hour, so I gotta get back to work, I guess, make some lure. If there's any other questions, I'll hang on for just a second or a minute, whatever. It's going to be starting to get cold here in a few days, it looks like, from the weather forecast. And saw Jeff Dunlap release one in a coyote set. Yeah. I had a fellow trapper down the road who had a bear caught an MB550. He was going to try to release it, but it ended up pulling out when he got close. So yeah, it can happen. Do you use sheep wool? I bought some sheep wool, Solomon, and I haven't really used it much. I guess I used it on a few sets in the dirt hole as kind of a lure holder. So yeah, I can't really say that I've used it very extensively. Coyote Whacker, thanks for your time. See you next time. Hey, thank you, Coyote Whacker. Thank you all for listening in on like short notice or no notice. Just kind of popped in here, and let's do it again. All right, guys, we'll catch you later. Thanks.